low-grade disease, which is 6 or less, we often don't recommend therapy. We recommend something called surveillance. Anything that's intermediate or high-grade, though, they're at greater risk of dying from the disease. 5 or 10 years ago, everybody diagnosed, or a large proportion of people diagnosed even with low-grade disease, which is 6 or less, were treated. That shift has actually changed. Now a lot more are not. So we're learning and getting better at that, but we need more help. And you're right, it's so obstacle. Thank you very much. I think we're done with the questions we're going to go to the next one. I'll just step out and everybody. Okay, we have one announcement, and that being next Monday is a government holiday, Columbus Day. So we don't have class on Monday, we have class on Tuesday. And our next speaker is Sonia Drakalu. So Sonia got her PhD from Rutgers University. Subsequently, she did a postdoc in France, and she came to NCI in the 80s and started working on transforming growth factor beta with Michael Flohr, and she's continued to do that. The title, Transforming Growth Factor Beta and Lung Carcinogenesis. Sonia.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Moody. Now we're going to be changing figures from prostate cancer to lung cancer. And just to take a short survey, how many people might be working on lung cancer in the audience? Anybody? They need more interest in this field. Okay. So today I'll be talking to you about lung tumorigenesis, lung cancer, and transforming growth factor beta. So today, as it was 2 years ago, lung cancer is the most common cause of cancer death among. All right. Is that better? Okay. All right. So lung cancer today, like it was 2 years ago or 20 years ago, is the most common cause of cancer death among both men and women in the U.S. 2 years ago, there were over 221,000 newly diagnosed cases of lung cancer and over 158,000 who died due to this disease. Now, because of the strong regimen of anti-cancer and anti-smoking campaigns in this country, most cases of lung cancer now occur in ex-smokers. However, because of other regimens like secondary smoke, as well as persons who have to work in the coal industry and exposure to radon, lung cancer is a serious disease in this country and continues to be. And unfortunately, the 5-year survival rate is still a dismal less than 15%. Now, my history is in TGF-beta, transforming growth factor beta, or TGF-beta for short. As a bit of background, TGF-beta is a multifunctional regulation of cellular growth and proliferation. It's a potent inhibitor of the proliferation of most normal epithelial cells in culture and shows widespread tissue expression. It plays a pivotal role in maintaining epithelial homeostasis and has been associated with various types of cancers, including lung cancer. And TGF-beta shows what is called a contact-dependent inhibition or stimulation of cell proliferation and myoplastic transformation. That's a mouthful. But we think that TGF-beta is a very attractive candidate for new therapeutic intervention approaches, among these for lung cancer treatment. So to understand TGF-beta, you have to go back to the beginning. And the beginning starts in the 1970s with another protein called sarcoma growth factor. Sarcoma growth factor is a polypeptide that is secreted by balloon marine sarcoma virus transformed mass fibroblasts that can stimulate the proliferation of normal fibroblasts to form colonies in cell agar. And this was a pivotal transformation assay that Joe DeLocco and George Scarro used and reported in the late 70s. Now, after the discovery of sarcoma growth factor, there are essentially two classes of PGFs that were isolated from MSC transformed cells. One class was shown to be able to compete with ectodermal growth factor, EGF, for receptor binding, and this class was termed to be TGF-alpha. Another class was shown not to be able to compete for EGF binding, but the colony-forming activity could be enhanced by TGF-beta, by EGF, and this was called TGF-beta. So sarcoma growth factor is really composed of at least two different polypeptides, TGF-alpha and TGF-beta. And unfortunately, they share a term, but they're very, very different proteins. And this was reported by Robert Osborne in the early 80s at the NCI. Following the discovery of TGF-beta, then steps were taken to purify this protein, and three different sources of purification were used, from human platelets, human placenta, and as well as bovine kidney, by three different researchers at the NCI, Dr. Bertha Cohen, Charles Wallace, and Anita Roberts. And purification, typically from bovine kidney, typically started with using 100 grams of bovine kidney taken from the local slaughterhouse. The kidneys were extracted with acid ethanol and centrifuged and precipitated overnight in the cold room with about 50 liters of a solution of ether ethanol. The next day, the precipitate was dissolved in 2 liters of acetic acid and then applied to a 80-liter biogel P60 column and fractionated. So 1 liter fractions were collected, then lyophilized and redissolved for further chromatography. And using this procedure, a typical yield from one preparation yielded about 5 to 6 micrograms of purified TGF-beta. And we call it TGF-beta1 now because we know there are multiple isoforms, but at that time it was just known as TGF-beta. So to give you some idea of the size of the columns needed for this purification, this slide shows the biogel P60 columns that were used, and the pink arrow on the right shows the 55 gallon drum that was used in the collection period. So the assay for TGF-beta involves the growth of normal red kidney cells, NRK cells, and cell target. So for this assay, a bag of base was placed on a petri dish, and into that was added a mixture of media, serum, NRK cells, EGF, and a portion of the sample. This was then allowed to incubate at 37 degrees with CO2 for 1 week, and then the plate was stained, and the colonies were counted with an instrument called an Almaton image analysis system. And the typical analysis Almaton system is shown at the bottom of the slide. Now, the concept is if TGF-beta is present in the sample, then colonies would grow and be counted. If no TGF-beta is present in the sample, no colonies would be blown and no colonies would be counted. So to go through the purification, after the final HPLC purification, this slide shows a polyacrylamide gel of the samples that were run on it, and TGF-beta migrates as a 25,000 molecular weight entity shown by the arrow on the right in samples, in this case, between 56 and 60. So, TGF-beta was really born at the NCI, and Drs. Michael Bourne and Nita Roberts are credited as being the parent of this molecule. So following the purification of TGF-beta, the amino acid sequence of TGF-beta, now TGF-beta 1, was determined, and TGF-beta 1 was shown to initially exist as a pre-pro TGF-beta entity consisting of 391 amino acids, having a single peptide at the amino terminus, a middle section which was termed the late-associated peptide or LAP, and a mature TGF-beta protein consisting of 112 amino acids at the C-terminus. Now, shown at the top of the cartoon of the amino acid sequence of TGF-beta, human TGF-beta 1, and I'd like to draw your attention to the 9 distinct residues in the cartoon, because these are very reminiscent and characteristic of the TGF-beta and TGF-beta family. Now, following the purification and sequencing, amino acid sequencing of TGF-beta, the crystal structure of TGF-beta was performed in the early 90s, and this happens to be the crystal structure of TGF-beta 2, because evidently it was much easier to crystallize TGF-beta 2 than TGF-beta 1. So the crystallography shows that TGF-beta is a dimer consisting of 2 identical monomeric chains held together by an interchain disulfide bond, which forms a hydrophobic pocket, and in the pocket are these 9 characteristic cysteine residues that form a structure that has been termed the cysteine knot. Now, TGF-beta is really the matriarch of what is called the TGF-beta superfamily. The superfamily consists of the 5 TGF-beta isoforms, TGF-beta 1, 2, and 3, that are found in mammals, TGF-beta 4 found in the chicken, and TGF-beta 5 in the amphibian. In addition, the superfamily also contains the bone morphogenetic proteins, also known as growth and differentiation factors, as well as the activins and inhibins. Now, so to summarize what I've been speaking to you about, TGF-beta is a 25,000 molecular weight bisulfide bonded homodimer. 3 highly homologous isoforms exist in mammals, and these are TGF-beta 1, 2, and 3. Principal sources of TGF-beta in humans include the platelets, bone, and spleen. Most cells express TGF-beta as well as its receptors, and TGF-beta is usually secreted in what is called a late inactive form that must be activated in order for the cell to perform its many wondrous events. And the superfamily of TGF-beta includes not only the TGF-betas per se, but the activins, inhibins, BMPs, and GDS. So the TGF-beta superfamily is really a large superfamily, and it's a central control module for many biological processes that are important to health and disease, including development, immune system function, reproduction, angiogenesis, aging, tissue repair and response to injury, metabolic regulation, and proliferative homeostasis. So with TGF-beta being involved in so many important control mechanisms in the body, it's a dream for somebody trying to get grant money for the United, and that's what they did. Okay? So the major biological responses regulated by TGF-beta include a laundry list of it is able to inhibit proliferation as well as to regulate such important processes as apoptosis, differentiation, and immune cell function, as well as being able to stimulate the accumulation of extracellular matrix and promotion of chemotaxis in certain cell types. Now, for 50 years, a model for the TGF-beta signaling pathway has been developed, and some of this is controversial and still in the making, but this is the present model. So we started at the top left with the TGF-beta ligand, and that's shown in the blue triangles at the upper left, and the ligands may be TGF-beta as well as activins, inhibins, BMPs, GDF, and so forth. So what happens is the ligand binds to the type 2 TGF-beta receptor, which is constitutively autophosphorylated. This then complex then recruits the type 1 receptor shown in pink, and they form a complex, and the type 2 receptor transphosphorylates the type 1 receptor. Okay? This then enables the complex to then bind to proteins called SMAD proteins, and depending on whether the ligand is an activin, TGF-beta, or BMPs, the SMAD proteins may be the SMAD proteins or the SMAD 2 or 3 in the case of TGF-beta and activin, or SMAD 1, 5, or 8, depending on which the BMP is involved. Once this complex is formed, the receptors are able to phosphorylate SMAD proteins, and then these enable the next step in the sequence is to interact with the common SMAD protein called SMAD4, shown at the bottom of the slide. And this then enables the signal to translocate to the nucleus, where it's able to control different types of transcriptional events. Now, the whole process can be circumvented by inhibitory SMADs called SMAD6 or SMAD7, again, depending on which ligand is involved. So, in addition to the bench research, TGF-beta has been examined in the clinic, and in the clinic, TGF-beta has been shown to have tumor suppressive properties. Firstly, germline mutations in various TGF-beta pathway components have been shown to cause familial predisposition to cancer. For example, SMAD4 has been shown to be mutated in juvenile polyposis syndrome. Secondly, the TGF-beta pathway components have been shown to be either somatically mutated or deleted in some human cancers. For example, the type 2 receptor in HNC, as well as the SMAD4 deletion in pancreatic cancers, some pancreatic cancers. And thirdly, reduced expression of the TGF-beta signaling pathway components, or overexpression of endogenous pathway inhibitors as well, have been associated with disease progression. And this has been characteristic by some diseases in which the type 1 and TGF-beta receptor have been overexpressed, or the SMAD7 or the SMAD7 regulated T proteins have been shown to be overexpressed as well. Now, in addition to the tumor suppressor properties, TGF-beta has also been shown to be able to act as a tumor promoter. So in this case, TGF-beta 1 has been shown to be elevated in many advanced types of human tumors and to be correlated with metastasis or poor prognosis. And the lung is part of this list of tumor types. And shown in the lower right-hand corner is a stain, the histological staining of a prostatic adenocarcinoma stain for TGF-beta 1. And you see the brown staining, TGF-beta is at the interface between the tumor-burning tumor and the microenvironment. So, what does TGF-beta do in carcinogenesis? Is it a hero as a tumor suppressor or a villain as a tumor promoter? Well, it turns out that it's a very complex story, and it turns out that TGF-beta can be both. TGF-beta can be a proximal effector of the malignant tumor phenotype. It can also act as a fungal growth inhibitor and tumor suppressor, and it could be a pro-metastatic factor. Much of this is relegated to the context and the environment. So a unifying hypothesis has been developed over the many years, and it thinks that general voted that TGF-beta can switch from being a tumor suppressor to a pro-oncogenic factor during cancer progression. And how does it do this? Well, in the normal epithelium, the tumor suppressor properties predominate over the pro-oncogenic activities of the chromosome. But as changes occur in the genetic and epigenetic context, as tumorigenesis proceeds, TGF-beta responsiveness goes down and is lost, and at the same time, expression and activation of TGF-beta is increased. So, as tumorigenesis proceeds to metastasis, the pro-oncogenic activities tend to start to dominate over the tumor suppressor activities and increase with tumorigenesis and metastasis. So now I'm going to shift to the story becomes a little more complex. And I just told you about the SMAD-dependent pathways for TGF-beta. Well, it turns out that there are a number of different SMAD-independent pathways by which TGF-beta can also operate. This includes the TAC-jump pathway, the RAS-MEK kinase pathway, the ROPATE pathway, and the protein phosphatase 2A pathway that functions in different types of cells. So we became more interested in the RAS-MEK kinase pathway in our studies of lung tumorigenesis because the KRAS protein has been shown to be activationally mutated into at least 25 to 50% of human lung adenocarcinomas. It's been further shown that mutation in one allele of KRAS increases the appearance of human lung lesions. In addition, there's been shown to be added crosstalk between the SMAD-dependent pathway and the RAS signaling pathway, and activation of the RAS pathway can modulate the TGF-beta signaling pathway for the SMAD protein. And finally, in vitro studies have shown that TGF-beta dominates over the mitogenic effect of RAS, but that activated RAS can override the interproliferative effect of TGF-beta. So there seems to be an interplay between possible interplay between TGF-beta and KRAS. Yes? Stay tuned. Okay, stay tuned. And I'll hope I can answer your question. Okay, so how does TGF-beta be involved in tumor suppression and then in tumor promotion? Well, in our model here, we can put forth at least 4 different pathways. In order to activate the tumor promotion pathway, one can have decreased levels and activity of the TEC2 receptor, or one can have a hyperactivated MEK kinase pathway through activation of the RAS oncogene, proto-oncogene. Thirdly, you could have decreased levels or activities of the SMAD protein, and the fourth possibility is a compromised effector function in the suppressor arm of the TGF-beta pathway. All of these are possibilities, so we kind of try to test them out. So the core goal of our lab was to determine the role of TGF-beta in the development and malignant transformation of lung epithelial cells, and this work was done in the epithelial carcinogenesis section of the Cell and Cancer Biology branch of NCI. We had 3 objectives. First, examine the effect of TGF-beta deletion in KRAS mutation alone and in combination on lung tumor incidence and pathology. Then, to determine the early events that occur in the development of lung lesions and their progression with tumorigenesis. And then to identify any potential signal transduction pathway changes that occur with increasing tumorigenesis. So to do this, we employed 4 mouse models. The AJ mouse model, the C57 TGF-beta1 heterozygous mouse, the AJ56 TGF-beta1 heterozygous mouse, and the TGF-beta1 heterozygous KRAS latent activatable mouse. And I'll quickly describe these 4 experiments. We had 2 questions. The first, does lung tumorigenesis affect the TGF-beta signaling pathway? And the reciprocal question, does the TGF-beta signaling pathway affect lung tumorigenesis? So we first started our study with using the AJ mouse model. This mouse model is very susceptible to chemically induced lung tumors, and tumors are developed in a very time-dependent manner with the appearance of hyperplasia, adenoma, and carcinomas. And the carcinomas that develop are histologically similar to human lung adenocarcinomas. In addition, the same molecular mutations occur in both human and mouse lung tumors, such as overexpression of KRAS and loss of P53. So we began a study using ethylcarbamate as the carcinogen. Ethylcarbamate can be metabolized in 2 pathways. There's a detoxification pathway shown on the left that involves an esterase and just proceeds to harmless ethanol CO2 in ammonia. There's another pathway, a bioactivation pathway, that occurs through CYP2E1 in the lung, and this results in vinyl carbamate and a vinyl carbamate epoxide that are agents that are able to bind to macromolecules like DNA and start doing bad events. So to produce the tumors in the aging mice, we injected mice with 2-month-old mice with ethylcarbamate and sacrificed groups of 20 mice over monthly intervals over 12 months. Shown here is histological immunostaining pattern of TGF-beta1, the type 1 TGF-beta receptor, the type 2 TGF-beta receptor in mouse bone tumors at various age. Now, we see intense brown staining for TGF-beta1 and the type 1 receptor in tumors from 2 months, 4 months, and 8 months sacrificed mice. But if you look at the panel on the right for the type 2 receptor, you will see that there's significantly decreased staining for the type 2 receptor in 2 months lung tumors, and virtually non-existent staining for the type 2 receptor in 4 months and 8 months tumors, lung tumors. This is shown more strikingly on the left, where we compare staining for the type 1 receptor and the type 2 receptor, where we see very brown staining for TGF-beta type 1 receptor in both the tumor shown in pink in panels A and B, as well as in the accompanying normal lung bronchioles shown in red. When we look at staining for the type 2 receptor, well, we see significant staining in the normal lung bronchioles in panel C and D, shown by the red arrows. We see virtually decreased staining for this receptor in the tumors. We also looked at the mRNA for type 1 and type 2 receptors, and we show levels of the type 1 receptor in all 5 mouse bone cell lines. When you look at the type 2 receptor in the lower right panel, you will see that there's decreased expression of the type 2 receptor in LM11 and the PCC4 cell line. The PCC4 lines are strikingly because this is known to be derived from an ethylcarbamate-induced lung tumor. So we also looked at the expression of these proteins in benzpyrene-induced aging mouse lung tumors, and using immunohistochemical staining, we see very much the same expression staining that we saw with ethylcarbamate, namely intense staining for TGF-beta1 and the type 1 receptor, and decreased expression of the type 2 receptor. Shown at the bottom of the slide is immunohistochemical staining for TGF-beta1 in normal lung bronchioles, as well as the type 1 and type 2 receptors. So we see decreased expression of the protein for the type 2 receptor in the tumors. Now, we also performed in situ hybridization for looking at the mRNA for these proteins in the middle of the slide, and see expression of the mRNA for TGF-beta1 as well as the type 1 receptor. When we look for the staining for the type 2 receptor, it's much decreased, going along with the decreased level of the protein in these tumors. So, our model shows that we're using the aging mice that there is decreased levels and activities of the type 2 receptor in our mouse model system, which goes along with promotion of lung tumors. Our next question was to determine whether deletion of TGF-beta1 affects lung tumor genesis. And for this, we employed the C57 Black 6 TGF-beta1 mouse. Now, C57 Black 6 TGF-beta1 knockout mouse was generated in the 80s. It's born and thrives, but about 3 weeks after birth, it succumbs to a general wasting syndrome. So this kind of mouse is not very good for long-term parthenogenesis studies. So, but when we look at the TGF-beta1 heterozygote gluttamate, it's born, it thrives, and it can proliferate into adulthood. So, Dr. Laura G. Wakefield at the NCI uses mouse to look at liver cancer. So she treated these mice with nitrosamine and looked at the percentage of mice with tumors, and found on the lower left slide that there's an increase in the percentage of mice with tumors in the heterozygous strain compared to the wild-type glutamate. And surprisingly, she also looked at the lung and surprisingly found that there was also an increase in the percentage of mice with lung tumors compared to the wild-type glutamate. So we kind of became very interested in it at that point. And in order to be able to study this in the lung better, because C57 Black 6 mice are not conducive to studying lung cancer, we crossed the AJ mouse with C57 Black 6 TGF-beta1 heterozygous mouse to generate an F1 generation of TGF-beta1 heterozygous mice and wild-type glutamate. So our strategy was to dose these mice, sequence the mice with carcinogens to generate lung tumors. So before we dosed them, we wanted to determine that we really had the bona fide mice that we wanted. So this shows an immunohistochemical staining pattern of TGF-beta1 in the lung bronchioles of these mice. Now, the wild-type mice on the upper left shows abundant staining for TGF-beta1 in the bronchioles. These are so-called normal mice before they get carcinogen. Now, the middle panel shows the heterozygous mice, and you see very suppressed expression staining of the TGF-beta1 here. We also did in situ hybridization with antisense probes, which is similar to the reduction in expression of the TGF-beta1 in the heterozygous mice compared to the wild-type mice. Now, we also verified this with northern blotting shown at the bottom left, as well as competitive RT-PCR, and that's kind of basis research, okay? So we see reduced expression of TGF-beta1 in the heterozygous mice compared to the wild-type glutamate, and these are so-called normal mice. So, we used the same strategy we did with the aging mice. We injected our ethylcarbamate into TGF-beta1 heterozygous and wild-type mice at 2 months of age, and then sacrificed 20 mice per sacrifice over a period of 12 months. And then we looked at the carcinogen-induced lung tumor genesis in these mice. And shown in panel A is the type of hyperplasia, panel B adenomas, and panel C carcinomas. And the TGF-beta1 heterozygous mice are shown in the red compared to the green wild-type mice. And I think in the hyperplasia adenoma, it's very evident that there's increased tumor incidence, as well as multiplicity numbers, and decreased tumor latency in the TGF-beta1 heterozygous mouse, shown in red compared to the wild-type glutamate shown in green. And I would like your attention drawn to the panel C, the carcinoma, because while we see carcinomas appearing in the heterozygous mice by about 4 months, it takes about 1 year to see these carcinomas appearing in the wild-type glutamate. We looked at the training for an expression of the type 2 receptor proteins in these lung lesions, and we saw decreased expression of the type 2 receptor and carcinoma, which is shown in the bottom right panel, in the heterozygous mice compared to the wild-type mice. Now, we also looked at the relative levels of the type 2 receptor mRNA levels from these mice as they were treated with efficarbamate with progressing tumorigenesis. And we were able to see decreasing levels of the type 2 receptor mRNA as lung tumorigenesis increased proceeded from hyperplasia to adenoma and then on to carcinoma. So our third question was, does deletion of TGF-beta1 and mutation of KRAS affect lung tumorigenesis? Because tumorigenesis, TGF-beta and KRAS are theoretically forming a story. For this question, we used the TGF-beta1 heterozygous KRAS late activatable mouse. Now, to study the interplay of TGF-beta1 and KRAS, we had to generate these mice. We crossed the TGF-beta1 heterozygous mouse, which was in C57 black 6 strain, with a mouse called the KRAS late activatable mouse, which was in a strain SB129. And with the opinion mice from Tyler, I don't have time to go into what is a KRAS late activatable mouse. It's just, for sake of argument, it's just activatable with a second hit. So we were able to generate 4 different phenotypes from these mice. The TGF-beta1 heterozygous KRAS late activatable mouse, which I'll call the double mutant, the TGF-beta1 wild-type KRAS late activatable mouse, which I'll call this the KRAS single mutant, the TGF-beta1 heterozygous KRAS wild-type single mutant, and the wild-type glutamate. So shown here are mouse lines that are dosing with carcinogen, and these were extracted from mice that I believe were 3 months of age. And one can show in panel, one can see in panels A and B, these clearly white nodules that indicate these lung tumors in the double mutant shown in panel A, and the KRAS single mutant shown in panel B. We don't see tumors forming in the TGF-beta1 heterozygous mouse or the wild-type glutamate, except on the rarest of occasions. So we looked at the effect of TGF-beta1 gene deletion and KRAS mutation on mouse survival. And to make a long story short, if you concentrate on plots for A and B, A is the double mutant and B is the KRAS single mutant, and we see decreased lifespans of both these mice compared to the TGF-beta1 heterozygous single mutant and the wild-type glutamate. Now, we looked at the pathology of lung lesions in these mice and show that there's increased hyperplasia and adenomas in the KRAS single mutant, but increased numbers of carcinomas in the double mutant shown in the bottom panel. We looked at the expression of TGF-beta1 and the type 2 receptor proteins in these mice and showed that there's increased levels of TGF-beta1 and type 2 receptor and the double mutant adenocarcinomas shown in the panels with the pink arrows compared to the wild type in the single mutant. Since we're interested in the signaling pathway, we also looked at the type 2 receptor as well as plant protein. And I won't go through all of this, but suffice it to say that in the double mutant, we see on the right upper panel, we see expedited reduction of the type 2 receptor protein and increased production of plant protein in these mice. We further extended our evaluation of the TGF-beta pathway. In addition, we reduced the production of SMAD4 and SMAD7 proteins, as well as expedited production of KRAS and RAF1 in the KRAS signaling pathway. We also looked at the apoptotic index in the single mutant and double mutant mouse lung adenomas and able to show reduced apoptosis in the double mutant adenomas shown in red compared to the KRAS single mutant. So our analysis shows that essentially one can have the tumor suppressor function of TGF-beta migrating to be the tumor promotion activity of TGF-beta by at least 4 different pathways in these mice that can develop into promotion of lung tumors. So in addition, I thought I'd add the slide at the end. There's quite a bit of activity quite recently about using anti-TGF-beta compounds in clinical trials. And there are various companies that are now looking at using various antibody targeting algorithms, anti-consolidate nucleotides, as well as receptor kinase inhibitors, and combined use of TGF-beta in vaccines against particular types of cancer. And I want to draw your attention to a compound called Lucanix, which is being developed by NovaRx against the targeted TGF-beta2, and that's currently in phase 2 trials against non-small cell lung cancer. So I'd like to acknowledge the people who really did this work. Jerry Anderson, who's now at GW, as well as Yang Kang, Elena Nomova, Joseph Tandy, and Sarah Oker. And MIT, we thank Tyler Beck and Kim Mercer for the KRAS, the activatable mouse. And I'd like to answer any questions you might have in the next 5 minutes because I have to run and catch a bus, so I walk back to City Bus. Okay.
to the 2017-2018 Wednesday afternoon lecture series here at the NIH. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anirban Banerjee. I'm an NFXCI in the biology and neurobiology branch at NICC, and I'm really presenting on behalf of the membrane protein research group. Today we have one of the few named lectures in this series, the NIH Director's Lecture. It seems that the speaker was voted for by the directors of the NIH Institute. The reason I thought it's not part of my written script here, because it is impossible not to feel overwhelmed when one even attempts to introduce today's speaker. And it's not really only because after performing trailblazing experiments in the ion channel field as a young faculty at Harvard Medical School, he decided that he was not satisfied with the resolution of the experiments that the then studies were providing him, and decided to crystallize potassium channels, which was at that point in time considered an impossible feat by many established crystallographers. And not only because after receiving the Nobel Prize at a very young age, he continued to push the frontiers of the ion channel and the membrane protein research field by solving the first structure of a eukaryotic potassium channel in 2005, incidentally the first eukaryotic membrane protein structure to be solved through heterologous purification. And also not because at a stage in his career, when others would have chosen to lead through the back, when I was a postdoc with him, he would regularly come to synchron trips, stay up till midnight, past midnight, process crystallographic data, and then show up in the morning at 7 o'clock and continue working on it. And not only because late as in 2012, when the structure of the first 2-pore potassium channel came out, one figure was actually from experiments done by Rod himself. Because, like really the proverbial is visually impaired man trying to gauge an elephant, these are really but snippets of Rod's scientific persona. The hallmark of which is really his deeply passionate, untiring, single-minded, and singularly insightful pursuit of the problem guides the love of his life, how ion channels work. That is both exemplary and inspiration. I do not intend to go through his awards because they are not pretty good descriptors of Rod. I'll just share a few experiences. Right after I came to the NIH postdoc from Sri Subramaniam, excuse me, after coming back from a cardiac workshop, I met Rod there. He was also a private shop, and I was not, because in his own words that was published in Nature, he likes to be at the steepest slope of the learning curve, which was referring to the latest breakthroughs of cardiac that really revolutionized both structural biology and the ion channel field, the latter much through Rod's own work. When I first came to Rod's lab as a postdoc, I was surprised how small their seminar room was for a lab of that stature. And I quickly realized that what that did was it focused everyone's attention onto the screen. And almost every group meeting, we would have aggregated discussions that occasionally ended with Rod's voice slowly rising over the rest of us. And as everyone else quieted down, Rod would share, almost as a soliloquy, his insights on the issue. Fortunately, these are some of the deepest stories